How's it going, Guardians? Shifty here, and if you're clicking on this video, you probably already know that I'm going to be doing a solo flawless run of the Pit of Heresy Dungeon on a Titan. Now, even though this dungeon is a little bit old now, there are still a few reasons you may want to run it. First of all, the chest at the end will drop some of the highest stat armor in the game on average. On top of that, this dungeon has 2 triumphs that are required to get the Harbinger title. One requires you to do the dungeon solo, and the other one requires you to do it flawlessly. Well, you can knock both of those triumphs in one run by doing a solo flawless run. Not only that, but if you do manage to pull off a solo flawless Pit of Heresy, you're going to get this sweet Crimson Echoes emblem. Anyway, before I go over my loadout, if you end up enjoying the video, make sure to hit that like button, and if you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. Alright, so for this run, I went with Bottom Tree Sunbreaker all the way up until the boss fight, where I switched to Top Tree Sentinel. My exotic armor of choice here is Heart of Inmost Light to help me get my abilities back faster. During the Invincible Ogre encounter, I do swap that out for a chest piece with void damage resistance and melee damage resistance as well. Moving on to the weapons that I'm using throughout this entire run. First, I have the Chroma Rush auto rifle in my kinetic slot, then I have Telesto in my energy slot, and in my heavy slot I have the Threaded Needle linear fusion rifle. Alright, and lastly, I want to go over my armor mods. I'm going to quickly show you each piece of armor, and if you need to see anything in more detail, just pause the video. Also, in this run I am using an Elemental Well build. Alright, that is all there is to my setup for this solo flawless Pit of Heresy run on a Titan. I will be offering commentary to give you some tips along the way. Now, let's jump into it. Alright, so for about the first minute and a half of this dungeon, we're just going to be jumping down. It takes a little while to actually get down into the pit. Just a little bit more to go. Alright, so the first encounter takes place in the Necropolis. There will be a chance to use a rally banner here in just a moment. You don't have to use it if you don't want to. I always like to just have my super and max ammo. From this rally flag, I do head off to the right immediately. This first encounter kind of teaches you some mechanics you need to know for the final boss fight. And you have to take out the pit keepers here in order to open up the door that's in this tower. In this door we're going to find a sword knight that we have to take out because we're going to need one of the Hive's swords. In addition to that, you can see 3 symbols above the door in the back there. You need to know those symbols because they tell you exactly where to go. There's 3 sort of mini bosses in this area that you need the sword to take out. So you can pull up a map for the area, or you can kind of just look around and look for the towers with the symbols that you need to go to. So the first one I'm heading to is the one with the downward point over here. So at each of the towers corresponding with one of your symbols, you're going to find one of the 3 mini bosses. For this one I do have the Might of the Broken Blade, and for this particular mini boss you have to block its melee attacks. Well, you don't have to block them, you just have to avoid them in some form or fashion. But you have to use the regular melee attack from the sword on it. You can't use the heavy attack. The heavy attack will do no damage to that enemy. You can also use the super for the sword as well. When that first boss is down, you have to head to the other 2 towers that correspond with your symbol. If your sword is getting low on ammo, you're also going to have to find another sword. So I'm just using these little elevators to get back up the Necropolis so I can just grab another sword. Actually, just going to head down here and see if I can find a sword over here. I will be able to for sure, because any of the towers that don't correspond to the symbols that you have will have another sword knight in it. So I went ahead and grabbed another sword. I am going to try to make my way to another tower that corresponds to one of my 3 symbols. However, I do have to clear out some of these enemies first and try not to die as well. You do have to keep in mind that the sword will lose ammo the longer it's on the ground as well. So I am coming up on another tower corresponding to one of my symbols. In my case, I had a circle-like rune. So if these doors aren't open, remember you have to take out the Pit Keeper. Looks like another sword knight came to me. I do want to clear the area out here first. And for this mini boss, we do have a Shrieker, and there's obviously 2 ogres that accompany the Shrieker. To take this one out, all you have to do is guard and make sure the shots are getting reflected back at that Shrieker. Alright, so that second mini boss is down. My other symbol is just over here, but I do need to find another sword. I think this one's going to be too low on ammo. Also want to take out this ogre quick. Just going to head over here and see if we can get a sword knight. There one is. Now I'm going to head down to my 3rd tower. If you want to, you can sword swing through the air like that. It'll help you close the gap if you're trying to jump somewhere pretty quickly. Again, I have to take out the Pit Keeper for this tower. And by process of elimination, the boss here is going to be a wizard, and it's going to be accompanied by 2 regular wizards. This one can be a little bit rough, especially if this first wizard is up front like this. I want to try to take out the 2 regular wizards first. So one of the regular wizards is down. My sword is losing ammo, so I have to be careful for that. When both wizards are down, you have to use the heavy attack to take this particular wizard out. Nothing else will do damage except for the sword super. I just like to use these pillars as cover and then do the heavy attacks around it. So my sword is kind of already getting low on ammo. It takes 3 ammo to do a heavy attack. The super on the sword, however, does not take any ammo. So if I get down to 1 shot, I'm going to just wait for the super. Just like that, the sword super was able to take it out, and I also still had that 1 ammo left. However, I don't need the sword any longer. When all 3 mini bosses in this area are taken out, you want to head to the tower with that green light shooting out of the top of it. Once you get there, there will be 1 final Pit Keeper you have to take out, and then you're done with this opening encounter. Looks like my Pit Keeper kind of fell off here. One shot was enough to take that out. And now we can move on to the next encounter. Alright, so now we're in the pit where we're going to have to navigate some Invincible Ogres. For this, we're basically going to have to dunk 3 orbs in order to open doorways to get to the next encounter. And here I swapped my chest piece with void damage resistance and melee damage resistance. I am going to make some risky moves here, so I want that extra damage resistance against the ogre. So if you're new to this dungeon, it might be helpful to pull up a map of this area. I kind of know it pretty well. I'm going to immediately take out one of the knights in one of these tunnels to get a void charge. I'm going to take this void charge out the left hand side here. If you're trying to do it exactly like I'm doing it, you can follow the pathway that I use. If this is your first time, it might take some practice to get used to this area and to not die to the ogres. So I have to take this first void charge all the way to the end of this tunnel and dunk it. In order to open these doors, I have to dunk 2 more arc charges, 1 in the middle pathway and 1 in the rightmost pathway. So it is pretty risky to just try and jump past these ogres like this. As you can see, I took critical damage here and it did start shooting me. I really should die here. I decided to go and pop my super so that I can get some health back. It actually has a second purpose. I can easily and quickly take out that second knight. And then on the opposite side of the room, I'm going to exit. This will be the middle pathway where I have to dunk this second orb. I'm going to put up a barricade to block the ogre's shots while I dunk. And now I'm going to try to run past this ogre again to the area with the next knight. I'm going to melee to prevent myself from flying into a wall. Now I'm just looking for this third knight. There it is. This will drop the final void charge that I need. And on the opposite side of the room that I came in, I'm going to find the exit to the rightmost pathway. And here is the final void charge dunk. I switched back to my Heart of Inmost Light. Here's a rally banner. Here we are at the Chamber of Suffering, where most Guardians struggle to complete this one in a solo flawless attempt. So for the most part, you want to stand on this plate. If you're off of this plate for too long, you will be wiped. In addition to that, while you're standing on the plate, you gain stacks of Curse of Suffering, which are going to make this more difficult. In order to clear those Curse of Suffering stacks, you have to grab a Void Charge from Knights. Every time I grab a Void Charge like that, I head back and stand on the plate for a second. And then I went ahead and dunked it. So when you do dunk an orb, you're going to get a huge wave of Thrall. You're also going to get 2 Knights, one up to the left and one up to the right. In my experience, that rightmost Knight ends up going to that left platform for whatever reason. I do want to mention I primarily constructed my Elemental Well build for this encounter. Between my solar abilities healing me and the Elemental Well build, I shouldn't have a problem surviving here. So right now I want to step on the plate just to reset the totem. Grab my second arc charge here. Basically, to succeed in this encounter, you have to make sure you're not overrun by enemies. To do that, you have to have weapons that are capable of clearing out groups of enemies. That's why I chose Telesto. My grenade and my elemental well build will heal me, which gives me some survivability. You also have to know when the knights are spawning and when waves of thrall are spawning. Right there was a great example of my abilities healing me when I needed it the most. So on the doorway behind me, there were 3 symbols left around that doorway. Those 3 symbols indicate that I need 3 more void charges dunked. I've already dunked 3 void charges, so now once I put in 3 more, I'll be able to go through that doorway. So there's 3 symbols left. Once I dunk this void charge, there should only be 2 left. I do want to mention that when I am down to 2 symbols like I am now, after I clear out these enemies, I want to try to do 2 void charges back to back. So you can see I'm kind of spamming Telesto shots where some acolytes were spawning. I did that on purpose because I knew there was an acolyte spawn and I didn't want them to overrun the area and spam me with grenades. So immediately after this void charge, I'm going to try to get a second one. That way I don't have to deal with the knights or thrall. So here we have a knight off to the right, and that knight is dead. I'm going to throw a grenade over there. It might kill some thrall and offer me some healing. This void charge was a little far away, so the totem might start going off. It did, but we had a little bit of grace period there. But with that, I'm done with the Chamber of Suffering encounter. To move on, you just have to shoot that barrier. And now we have a small little bit of a jumping section to do. We have to jump past all of these traps. So that one's rotating counterclockwise, so I'm going to kind of walk down counterclockwise. So for this area, there's 3 more symbols. Those tell you the locations of 3 wizards that you have to take out to move on to the next area. Might also be helpful to have a map pulled up for this section. I just kind of wing it and look for red on my radar and chase after that red. I also know this area pretty well because I've run this dungeon multiple times. So my first wizard should be off to the right here. There's going to be a shrieker. I get it to open up and use my linear fusion rifle to take it out. Now I do want to do a little bit of jumping here. And here's my first wizard. I'm just going to kind of spam Telesto shots up there. I am out of Telesto now, but the wizard is gone. So I'm going to go ahead and jump around the area until I find my second wizard. This part also might prove challenging to some people, especially if you're not so great at jumping. So since these acolytes are here, I believe the other wizard is right over here. There we go. That is the second wizard. There are some sniping acolytes off to my left there. I think they're going to despawn. There they go. And this is a part where it might be helpful to have the map to find the third wizard using those symbols. However, I'm just going to again jump around the area until I find some red on my radar and chase after that red. Alright, so I do see red on my radar, but it's not going to be over here. I might have to go out and around again. I really could have sped this part up if I was looking at those symbols and had a map available. I wouldn't even need a map if I had the symbols and their locations memorized, of course. So the final wizard should be right over here. There is a little crevice I can go in here. I'm just going to pop my super since there's not much room to fight here. Since the third wizard is down, I can move on to the next area, but I have to get back to this side of the room, which is opposite of where we started. And there's our exit doorway right there. If you don't kill all three wizards, that doorway will be blocked off. And now we're at the Cradle of Damnation, where the final boss fight is going to take place. If you haven't noticed, I haven't swapped weapons this entire dungeon, and I get to use one of my favorite exotics, Telesto. So at this point in time, I am going to switch to Top Tree Sentinel. The reason being is I am going to be using a bubble during the actual boss damage phase. Now that I'm ready, I'm going to head down here. So right away I like to try to take out a Sword Knight and then head off to the right here. So up here there's going to be a wizard mini boss like the one in the first encounter. Here you do have to use heavy attacks to take it out. I like to just stand out one of these doorways and kind of bunny hop while doing the heavy attack. This helps you largely avoid the damage from the wizard. Go ahead and super it here since it can take damage from the sword super as well. Finish off any acolytes in the area. So when each of these mini bosses is down, it will drop a void charge that we have to dunk around the boss area. Before I bring it down there, I do want to take out some of the enemies down here. And I like to rotate around one. There's 3 places to dunk these orbs. One in front of each of the towers. I like to rotate around to one of the other ones to dunk it. Some people even wait to dunk all 3 void charges until they've killed all 3 mini bosses. So in order to take out this next mini boss, I'm going to grab another sword here. This time I'm going to head off to this left tower. First thing I'm going to do is clear out the acolytes. While clearing out the acolytes, I do want to try to avoid the mini boss over here. Kind of chasing me down already. Did have a sword super available right away. And now I'm just going to block and do the light attacks. I'm just going to block until I heal here. Alright, since I have some sword ammo left, I'm going to head over here and do some heavy attacks towards that third tower in the back. This might help damage or take out some acolytes over there. Just make sure not to fling yourself off the edge. I did get some damage off, not a ton, but I got a little bit. So again, I'm going to rotate around. I can't even dunk it in front of this tower since that's where I dunked the other void charge. So I'm going to head over to the left, dunk it here. Kind of run around the circle, and I'm going to take out any thrall that spawn. Gonna go ahead and take out this sword knight so I can grab another sword for that third and final mini boss. If you haven't guessed yet, once you dunk that third void charge, you're going to head into the boss DPS phase. Also, if you didn't see at the beginning, I do have solar damage resistance and concussive dampener on my chest armor, which really helps during this boss fight. So I'm ready to start the boss damage phase, so I'm going to head over to the final spot where I'm going to dunk this void charge. Right after I dunk, I'm going to run forward in either direction around the circle and head in on one of the other spots. I'm going to do a little bit of damage here with my linear fusion rifle to start. When the cursed thralls spawn, I'm going to go ahead and use my bubble. Make sure to try to avoid the fire attacks. I'm just going to kind of weave in and out of my bubble, doing some damage with my linear fusion rifle. Maybe take out a few cursed thrall. It's unfortunate that he's kind of approaching my bubble like this. I'm going to kind of back away here and use Telesto for the remaining amount of time that I have. So once the boss does the slamming attack, you only have a couple of seconds to do more damage before you have to get out. If you're in there when he goes off like that, you're going to end up dying. That was a close one. A knight came up behind me. Now all we have to do is repeat that process. We have to take out the 3 mini bosses again, dunk 3 void charges, and we can enter another boss damage phase. As you can see, during that first boss damage phase, I did do over half of its health. So hopefully I can take it out in the second boss damage phase. Ooh, a cursed thrall ran up on me. You do have to be careful for cursed thrall if you do multiple damage phases. If they're left over from that first boss damage phase, they can run up here, just like that one did. So again, since I have some ammo left, I'm going to shoot it back towards this back tower. I'm going to double check for some enemies down here. There are some thrall. Of course, we have the sword knights as well. Like I said, I always tend to rotate clockwise before I dunk. I'm going to just kind of rotate around here, taking out some thrall. I think there's a sword available over here for the second mini boss. Go for these acolytes right away. Also avoiding the mini boss. Almost forgot to use the remaining heavy charges on my sword for these acolytes over by the Shrieker. I'm gonna head back and grab my void charge. Rotate clockwise here. And head around the circle and take out any thrall that I see. I'm going to need one final sword for that Shrieker. I'm going to take out this heretical knight. And make my way to the final tower. Again, if you forgot from the first encounter, in order to take out the Shrieker, you have to just guard and reflect the shots back at it. Should be one acolyte here yet. Take that out. Looks like we have a second one, actually. And now I'm ready for boss damage. So again, I'm going to dunk it, and then immediately run forward and enter the circle at a different spot. I did forget to mention you have to be in this green circle in order to damage the boss. Do some damage right away with my linear fusion rifle and wait for the cursed thrall to spawn. Decided to head out the other side of my bubble since he used his fire attack on the right side of my bubble. I do have to be careful for these cursed thrall. A lot of heavy ammo, so I have to rely pretty much on my Telesto. I did get a good grenade on it there. Should be close to doing its final slam. There it is. And there is the boss defeat. And there it was. That was a solo flawless completion of the Pit of Heresy Dungeon on a Titan in Season of the Lost. I hope that this video helps you out, and if it does, remember to like and subscribe. I just want to thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.